Hi guys! So today we will be presenting to you the answers to the essential question based on Panitikang Bakla, and also based on how the story was being presented in Ang Mga Batang Post. So now we proceed to the first essential question. How do Filipino writers revisit the tradition of children and adolescent literature in the Philippines?
So as we all know, all of our children and adolescent literature in the Philippines is all about local or national setting. They reflect the reality in the Philippines, especially when we were colonized by the Spaniards. It reflected the life of the Filipinos during that time. And until now, even in Panitikang Bakla, they still try to reflect the reality in their stories.
So meaning, it is localized.
Yes, and it is what is really happening in the Philippines.
Yes.
Next question. What things do they consider in writing children and adolescent literature?
So the things they consider in writing literature in terms of discussing the third sex is that they are trying to negotiate the side of the third sex to the heterosexuals. So now how do they negotiate that? So they are trying to present some examples, some reality stories, and what is really happening in the present time. So they are trying to show their side on the heterosexual so that the heterosexual will be able to understand what is the plight of those people belonging in the third sex. And as we all know that, in the history, the third sex is always being discriminated. The inequality in our society is very significant in terms of gender. And that is what the third sex trying to make so that, we're going to fight the inequality in the society by showing the other side of the third sex to the heterosexuals. So that is how they do it.
I believe they also want to debunk the idea of our society because our society is so patriarchal.
Yes.
Which is why they want to present another side of the coin by doing this Panitikang Bakla.
That being in the third sex doesn't mean that you can do. It only means that being part also of the other gender that is not acceptable in the society can make a difference and can also make a positive change, not just the patriarchal thinking of the society. Now, for the next essential question, how does one explain the way these writers position contemporary socio-political issues in their text?
So how do they do that? They formulate a concept of the third sex. This is how they involve themselves in the socio-political context. They break stereotypes of the third sex. They aim to free themselves from the bondages of the patriarchal society that we have. That is how they involve themselves in the society that they live in. This is why it's important that we also look for, or we try to read these kinds of texts because we are enlightened to other realities other than what we experience every day.
Yes, also because the reason why still the discrimination is very rampant because we are not exposed in these texts that have the side of the third sex, because most of our texts, especially internationally and locally, just focus on the heterosexual side. And now it is time for us to break that chain of inequality in the society by making literatures that showing the side of the third sex. Now for the next essential question,
how do these writers navigate the terrain of controversial topics using children and adolescent literature?
yes, these kind of topics, especially when being discussed in literature, even in medias, it is very controversial because as we all know here in the Philippines, we are a very religious country.
Yeah.
And in terms of that kind of topic, the church is very sensitive. And because most of the Filipinos are members of the church, most of also our people do not really talk about this kind of matter. That is why in the different texts that discusses the third sex, most of the time, they do not really explicitly present the ideas of the third sex, the side of the third sex, and also the plight of the third sex. Instead, they show the other side of this gender by implicitly presenting it through symbolisms. So we can observe that in some texts that discusses panitikang bakla, they are very pro to symbolism, so that it is not very explicitly shown. Because as we all know that our society, especially the Philippines, is very sensitive in this kind of topic. At least in this very simple step of implicitly showing the side of the third sex, we will be able to get the attention of our readers, especially the Filipino readers. So by symbolism, they were able to navigate the terrain of this controversial topic.
Just what happened with Soji Bill.
Yes.
It gained a lot of feedbacks from the netizens.
Especially specifically negative feedbacks. So we can see that the reaction of the people in terms of this kind of topic, they are very,
reactive.
very reactive. That is why, in terms of presenting it, we must be very implicit or through symbolism, so that at least we can get their attention.
Yes.
Next essential question: how does one articulate the significant human experiences found in selected children and adolescent literature in the contemporary Philippines?
So they use different scenes of the ordinary lives of the third sex, or the common lives of those that belong to the third sex. Like for example, a breadwinner, a gay who is the breadwinner of the family. How does they live in this setting, or what discriminations do they get from the people around them? Yeah.
That is why we can see most of the time in the stories that presents this side, they try to present the positive side.
Yeah.
Because mostly in our society, when we say gay or member of third sex, malas o salot sa lipunan.
Black sheep.
Yes, black sheep. But if we try to show the other side, we will understand that we are just being locked up in a negative connotation when it comes to LGBTs.
And look, and if you have already read Amapola, the main character in the story is a gay, and it shows that Amapola is very fun, a fun person, especially when she became a manananggal. How did she overcome that problem that she faced? And she faced it very positively. Even if there's trouble, she was still able to get through that, because that's the positive thing about these people. They are very resilient even if they face a lot of negative feedbacks from the people around them. So next question. How did scholars read and introduce these various tales?
So now, scholars introduce these various tales first by giving examples, and especially those examples are localized. So meaning, in the context of the Filipino setting, how do LGBTQ community is being treated by the society? How does the government respond? How does the policy of the legislative body contributes for the LGBT community? And how does the church respond to the different issues that is involving also the plight of the LGBTQ community? Also, we have already discussed earlier that the very recent issue about this one is the Soji Bill. And we can see how the social media, how does the government, our senators, our congressmen, how does the scholars, how does our teachers, and how does the church respond to this kind of issues. And we can see that, there are positive responses and there are negative responses. And by, I think, establishing more positive response, I think by that we will be able to create a society that is free from discrimination. And I think this is the very first step, that we expose the people to the reality.
Yeah.
And we need to recognize that we really have the problem, because as we all know, the very first step to solve the problem is to identify that there is really a problem in dealing with the LGBTQ community. And also, by showing vulgar words, especially in text, in medias, in movies, and in different TV series, even in radio series, so that we will not sugarcoat what is really happening in our society. If what is the exact word to describe the plight of the third sex, our writers and our directors in different movies and different texts that discusses it, they use vulgar words to discuss this very controversial matter.
And they also use sexual themes.
Yes.
They like to use that in Panitikang Bakla. Why? Because they want to entice the readers. That's why other Filipinos like to read. What other Filipinos like to read.
Yes.
They want to read that sexual themed books. And that is how these writers lure other readers. And of course, with that, they can really make the people understand their side.
Yes.
With that sense.
And that was being shown in mga batang pos.
Yes, Batang Pause. When they talk about HIV.
Yes. HIV awareness.
Awareness.
That includes the LGBTQ community. And how do these writers construct children and adolescents in their literatures?
So, with this, they use kids or children as their main characters. Like in Batang Pause, almost every one or every character in that movie or in that text is a teenager or a child. Because as you can see, these the common notions in being gay or being involved in the third sex, we all common see these things formed in a child as early as 10 years old, 11,
Yes.
or in his or her teenage years. Which is why they use batang characters or children as their main characters, because they want to really show the society the reality about the third sex.
And as we all know, children, because during this time, children are very free to express themselves. And these children or these teenagers still don't have that very mature notion of thinking how the society will think about them. That is why most of our LGBTQ communities that is very expressive in terms of their gender preferences, usually in children, in the age of being a child, because they are very free to express. At least by that, there is no filter on what is really their emotion, what is really their expression in terms of gender preferences.
And also in this stage, the main character is very wants to explore.
Wants to explore.
This is why they created children as their main character.
And also children are very curious
Yes.
in exploring who really they are and what is really their purpose in the society.
So next question. What are the pedagogical implications of this session to the Filipino high school students from the perspective of precursors of children and adolescent literature in the contemporary Philippines?
So first, this kind of discussing, especially in teaching, this kind of controversial topics is very revolutionary. It means it has really big effect, especially in teaching, because we do believe that education must be liberating. It means we must now free our thinking from the very patriarchal perspective of the society. That we start to unlock or to unchain that kind of notion that in our society, we only recognize being masculine and being feminine. Because the reality is that, more than that, is the component of our society. That it is not only being masculine or being feminine, because it is, what do you call that?
A thin line or a border?
Yes.
Boundary.
Because there's a boundary for us that inspires discrimination and inequality in society, and the goal of teacher is to break that boundary or to break that line that promotes discrimination and inequality to our students. Because the moment that our teacher starts to discuss that this kind of controversial topics must not be filtered, but instead we must expose these topics so that our children, especially our high school students, are exposed to this kind of topics, and they will understand how to deal with this kind of topic, so that at least by this we inspire we inspire diversity, we celebrate diversity and equality and equity in our society, so that discrimination will no longer prosper.
And also, as what Luwalhati Bautista said, hindi lahat ng mga bagay na sexual ay natututunan sa eskwelahan. So meaning, even if we do not introduce these kinds of books to the children, they would still be able to learn it from outside the school.
Yes.
And as teachers, it's our job to guide the children on the things that they are exposed to. We must...
So, this quote is from Luwalhati Bautista. Hindi lahat ng mga bagay na sexual ay natututunan sa eskwelahan. This is of course true because not everything that we teach in school or not everything that is learned by the student came from educational institutions. So as teachers, we must strike a balance between the things that they learn outside and from the things that they learn from the school. And as teachers, we should also act or learn to step forward because our students are already exposed to this kind of reality. So we shouldn't be afraid of sharing to them the other side of the reality that they live in. Because there are, I believe that children or adolescents question so much. They are not just satisfied with the answers that they get from the environment. They want an authority or someone that has enough knowledge to answer the questions. So the role of teachers is to enlighten them of this reality. And we shouldn't be afraid to share to them what we know about the third sex or what is our stand in the third sex. But we should be also aware of the background of our students, of their exposure to such sensitive topics. We shouldn't be too conservative, especially in our classroom setup, because they already know these things. And we are just there to guide them or to back up what they know about these things. So again, we are from group number 7 and 8, and our topic is about panitikang bakla.
And that is how we answer the essential question, and I hope that you understand and you get significant and vital answers from our group. So thank you guys. See you next week.